What's up, guys? Today we're looking at the subreddit entitled Parents. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Slept over at boyfriend's and woke up to a horror story. For background, I'm 19, and my now ex-boyfriend is 20. It's his biological mother I'll be referring to here. Boyfriend and I were together for 2 months at this point, but have been friends for several years prior. We broke up very soon after this, and this event took place about 2 weeks ago, and I need it off my chest. Now I've had a few odd things come up while talking to his mother, but we have only talked a little here and there, maybe 4 or 5 times until this point. Each time wasn't comfortable, but nothing I didn't think was outside of the norm for a mother teasing her son. Comments about meeting the family and staying a week in another state, where said extended family lived in a room with boyfriend only a week into meeting me, or talking about how small I was and how I could fit inside her wedding dress. Stuff that was definitely odd, but I rarely saw her and thought little of it. My boyfriend had warned me she was off her rocker a bit, but as I said, I didn't interact much with the lady. Although one more odd thing I will add, a week into briefly mentioning that we were together, his mother told his entire family and somehow sent photos of me to them. I don't have her on any social media, and my boyfriend had not sent her any. To the point my boyfriend was getting calls from family members he hadn't spoken to in years about how we were doing. Now I will say, as much as we were friends for years, we lived apart and never met up unless it was public without family around, just because it's easier to meet in between each other. Now onto the main event. After a night of relaxing and playing video games at my boyfriend's house, we got snowed in quite early on in the night, and neither of us drive. It's a good 30 minutes to my house and everyone is asleep. I decided against better judgment to spend the night, as it was recommended prior to me by him and his parents, if I ever needed it, and they assured me it would be no issue, and they could take me home the next morning. Now I've had a few awkward bumps in the road with his mother before this, but nothing that said run in big bold letters like this. At about 7 in the morning, earlier than the alarm we had even set, we hear loud banging on the door, almost as if someone was trying to tear the wall down. I assumed this was maybe some work getting done to the house or something of the sort, and just tried to shut my eyes. A few minutes after the banging gets unbearable, the door swings open and she barges in. I hear his mother yell his name a few times as she makes her way over to the bed. I assumed at this point she was mad and tried my best to act as if I was sleeping. She told Google, he has one of those things that can turn off or on the lights via voice, to turn the lights all the way up, and began to stand over the bed where we were sleeping. For your information, we are fully clothed, not even near each other. She then begins to repeatedly yell "Oh my God" for a good while until she says she is still here. She sits down on the bed as my boyfriend promptly asks if she can calm down and leave. She insists she is going to stay right here and begins talking in a voice you'd only talk to a child or an animal in. She asks us if we are fully dressed, and we both say yes and show her, although I would like to state, she is by no means very hard on religion in this aspect, and is just asking for the sake of being weird. She talks about how she knew I would stay over, and how I wanted to. For the record, I did not want to. I even had an hour-long discussion with my boyfriend before going to bed, about why I dislike sleeping over places, but it was against all odds. I let her know I actually have school this afternoon, and I wasn't planning on staying. I have to go here pretty soon anyways. The snow had gotten bad and everyone was asleep, so I slept over. She tells me that she knows that's a lie and that it's okay, because you're a part of the family now. She then rambles about how she wants grandkids, but not so soon, and how I could fit into her wedding dress better than her own daughter. Please keep in mind I have met this woman no more than 5 times now in my life, each in very short intervals. I then tell her that I need to leave in the next 2 hours to go work on schoolwork, and she tells me that there's no way I'll get home, and I'll just have to stay the night again, and we can all pretend to be a big happy family. I say that I'll get my father if it's troubling for them to drive in this weather, but reaffirm that I need to go home. She says she isn't going to take me home, and I can stay here as long as I like because she knows I love it here. She asks us if we want breakfast, and that she can make us some. We tell her no and ask her for the 100th time during this to leave. Of course, these are just the main things she said, but she mentions marriage among other things as well. It took him forever to even get her to leave because she insisted I liked her company, and we were family, and she's his mother and therefore can say anything she wants. After she leaves, I luckily am able to get a ride home earlier than expected via my boyfriend's dad, just 15 minutes later, and we hurry out the door. As we are in the car, she calls my boyfriend's phone and her husband's frantically until her husband answers and asks to be passed to boyfriend. She then, on speakerphone, begs him to speak to me as she thinks I left because of her. That was definitely why I left early, but I also, as I told her, had other plans. This goes on for another minute before he hangs up on her and mutes the phone, and gives it back to his dad. I later found out she did the same to all his sister's exes, even to a larger scale, which led to his sister moving out soon after. She also feels she did no wrong and wanted to continue to see me afterwards, and even cried when confronted by her husband and son on her behavior. That's the last I ever talked to the woman, and hopefully it stays that way. Second story. My parents threw fake money at me when I exposed their blatant theft to the rest of the family. This happened in 2015. I was 18 and about to move out on my own. Prior to this, I had a savings account my parents had helped me set up, and I'd been putting money into it any way I could for 3 years. Birthday money, odd jobs, part-time after-school job washing dishes, all that stuff, and I'd managed to get a few thousand into it. I'd really been wanting to move out because I have 2 little brothers that absolutely drive me up the wall. My parents loved making me the live-in babysitter whenever I wasn't working, which is why I used the excuse to work as much as I could. When the time came that I wanted to move out, my parents said they wanted me to stay because they needed my help, and were wanting me to start paying rent to help with bills. But I held my ground that I wanted to live on my own. I'd already paid the deposit and first month's rent on an apartment without telling them, and by that point I had a local full-time job, so I was set to move out after about another month. So when they found that out, they freaked and told me to get out that day if I wanted to be on my own so bad. I packed what I could and left to go to my aunt and uncle's house. It was a 4-mile ride with a bicycle that I had a small trailer hooked to. When I told my aunt and uncle what happened, they were very angry and took me in right away. A couple days later, I went to withdraw all the money from my account and saw that it was empty. My parents had come in the day prior and cleaned it out. All the bank could do was give me a balance statement saying so. Because my parents were co-signers on the account, that meant they had access to the money too. I was livid, and immediately told my aunt and uncle as soon as I could. They were beyond angry too. Then my aunt got an idea and started calling up other people in the family to tell them what my parents had done. It wasn't long before the shit had hit the fan. My other aunts and uncles, cousins and grandparents were all furious and let my parents have it. I don't know what kind of excuses my parents gave them, but it didn't work. The next time I saw my parents, they'd showed up to my aunt and uncle's house to yell at me. When they saw me, my mother threw some money at me and called me an ungrateful brat for telling everyone. My aunt then said it was her who told everyone, not me. I looked at the money they'd thrown, and it was just some kid play money my little brothers had. I asked where the real money was, and my parents said they'd already used it to pay off a credit card. I said I wanted the money they stole back for real, but they refused and said it was their right to take it since they'd opened the account for me and I still have a job. My expenses at the moment were fine because my next paycheck was deposited in a new account, and I was able to save until the apartment was ready, but my parents took a lot of heat from my aunt and uncle until they left. My cousin also used to babysit for my parents when I was busy, and she not only refused to do so again after what they did, but told me she put out the word to other teen babysitters on social media to avoid my parents because they were thieves. By the time I was living in my apartment, my parents finally couldn't take the social stigma anymore and met me to compromise. They said they couldn't pay me back all at once and asked for a payment plan. I had the exact number of the amount they'd stolen and said I wanted it all back. They actually tried to haggle me down to half the total, but I refused to anything but the full amount. They reluctantly agreed and gave me $200 a month in cash for 2 years before it was all paid back. Now I barely ever see my parents, let alone speak to them. And they clearly still blame me for what happened too, because their reputations in the family never recovered. But I don't care, they were thieves that paid the piper. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and I'll see you in the next video.